Welcome here, Punch Out Boxing. Delighted to be here with the man who launched my career. I won't ever get bored of saying that, Jon Trethewey of TM14 Promotions. Happy New Year to you from all of us at Punch Out Boxing. Hope you're well
Yeah,
and rearing to go for another year of great boxing because the sport is super thriving right now, isn't it?
yeah, definitely. Happy New Year to you and the team there. Part of the family Punch Out. It's always good to have us on. So thanks for having us. Yeah, there's so much going on in boxing generally, the elite level, some of the stuff you're seeing and the fights being made in the shows are out of this world. Equally, I think this year's going to be a breakout year for us at TM14 with some of the things we got lined up, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, really exciting to turn the new year and get all these shows coming up.
Yeah, I mean, before we go into the coming year, can we just have like a little look back at 2024? I mean, talk about breakouts. You had that great intercontinental war with the US. That was what a show that was. You had the 5v5 sort of small hall version at the O2 Indigo against Mark's boys. Yeah, and of course you were prolific at York Hall. Yeah, how do you assess 2024?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. To be fair, mate, if I look at, we did your call nearly every month. We never do January because of Christmas and people are hard up. We don't do August because of school holidays and ticket sales. But we had every other month. We had some other venues we did as well. So that starts becoming the norm. We're very prolific and regular there, as you say. But to then go, the Texas one was massive. To take 7 fighters, it ended up being 6v6 because of some paperwork on one of the fighters. Didn't get to fight sadly out there, but to take 7 UK fighters out there and their coaches for a week and fight the Americans in their own backyard, quite hostile. We got a draw in the end. It was 3-3 because of the 6 fights, which shows it was very well matched.
Mhm.
And that was a fair result. Um, we just announced, as you've probably seen, the rematch of that. We'll probably come on to that. That's going to be at Chelsea Football Club. First time there's ever been a professional boxing show at Chelsea. So we're excited by that. And that will eclipse that last one on every level, as we'll talk about. Um, the O2 was massive. It was the first one we really did. Well, we did one actually a couple of weeks before in the end, but it's the first proper one we did with the NEILSONs. It was promoter v promoter. I'll have to get it in again. Bragging rights are still with me. I think I won 11-5 on the night. So I'll take that. That is about to get dropped this week. The announcement on the O2. Everyone knows it's coming, so I'm not letting the cat out of the bag. I probably won't share the fights yet because it hasn't been announced. But at the moment, we're looking at getting 10, 11, possibly even 12, 50 fights. Everyone with winning records on that as well. So yeah, exactly the same as last year. And we've got every month booked this year at York Hall pretty much like last. So it's just great to work with all the trainers, all the fighters, all the managers, building our profile and our brand, but more importantly, getting the fighters out as often as we can to help them build their career because it's about the fighters more than anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of those guys that you took over to Texas really did their stock. No end of good stuff. Brad Axe, the RAF boy, his heroics against Delgado, who I think Delgado was a top amateur over there in Texas. So for him to take that in his second pro fight and put a really good account of himself in losing, that was really creditable. And of course, young Arnie from small town Clacton. I keep joking to him, we need someone other than Farage to be famous from that town. And again, for him as a tall, slender boxer, go over there and get a stoppage win. Yeah, some great performances out there.
Yeah, the three winners on the night. Arnie got a stoppage and looked fantastic. He's quite a quiet lad, Arnie. He's one of the nicest lads you'll meet. But because he's quiet and very polite and unassuming, people don't think maybe he's as in your face or as good as other people. But he proved it out there. He took on a good fighter in his backyard and he stopped him. Um, Ollie Duffy got a win out there, a fair points decision, which was also really, really good. He did brilliant, very composed, so that helped and helped his stock grow. And then Harvey Horn probably stole the show. All right, he didn't get a stoppage, but we were 3-2 down going into the final fight. They
Mhm.
were certain that their kid, I think he was 8-0 maybe, or whatever it was, they were certain he was going to beat Harvey, but Harvey showed his class there. As for Brad, yeah, he's got balls, that fella. He was 1-0. He went out there, fought someone who was a decorated amateur, who was also 4-0 as a pro. So a little bit more experience and in the backyard. And I've said this on other interviews. He weren't far off. He did get beaten. He deserved to get beat, but I think a little bit more experience, and he probably would have had enough to beat Delgado. I'd like to make that rematch somewhere down the line. I'm sure Brad would as well. And we've got lots coming on with transatlantic shows coming up. If 2 more planned this year, so maybe 3. So who knows there? But yeah, fair play to Brad. He took it, and he didn't let himself down for sure.
Wow.
Neither did anybody.
Several transatlantic shows. That is banging. I mean, looking ahead to this year, then starting in what 3 weeks, you're going over to Ipswich. Young EILISH Tierney headline in there. That looks like it's for a title. It's a 10-rounder. She's making quite a name for herself there. And I guess with Fabio, the British champ, and possibly soon to be the WBA heavyweight champ, leading the way for Ipswich, it's a good little sort of town there to make some inroads into.
Yeah, spot on. We were asked to go and help and do a show up there back end of last year. When did we go? October, I think it was. Was it early November or late October last year? We have a few fighters with Matt, who's the manager for the fighters in the Ipswich gym. And then we know Graham Everett really well in Norwich as well, which is a bit further up. But for all those fighters to travel to London, obviously you're asking a lot of your friends and family, not only to pay the tickets, but to travel. Some of them have to come in hotels. So we were asked if we'd do a show. We're quite happy to help out on shows. And if it goes somewhere different, we find it quite exciting. So we went there and it was a great success. It was busy. They hadn't had a professional boxing fight there for 6 years. Fabio himself came along, but he's in the same gym as EILISH, so I'd expect that. He brought after flipping Ipswich Town squad with him as well, which was really, really good. So we had some Premier League footballers in attendance, and it was a great event, not only for us and the fighters, but also for local people in Suffolk and indeed Norfolk. We were asked to go back. They look after us, we look after them. So their fighters will still go on York Hall shows. But if we can go maybe a couple of times a year for them to help them with local tickets. So, yeah, so we're back there this time. We've got 3 really good 50-50s. I've better turn my pace. Got hundreds of shows going on at the moment. Top of the bill is EILISH against Katie Smith. They're both undefeated. Katie, we know her well. We had her debut in Portsmouth. A good fighter. Sometimes keep paying for journeywomen. Ladies are expensive because there aren't many of them. If they have another one, are they really learning much more? Hats off to both ladies. We've managed to get it for a Commonwealth Silver full title, so that's really good for them. And I know that we announced that earlier in the week, and that's raised a little bit more noise in Ipswich around that fight. Can't pick them. I'm loyal to both. EILISH is obviously the home girl, and we've had her 3 times. All her fights have been with us. But that's probably more just because of location. Both fighters will be treated identically the same, and may the best lady win. But I know that'll sell some tickets as well, I'd imagine. We then got Paul Gordon fighting Tom Brennan in 50-50, which is an English eliminator. Really good fight. Paul Gordon's obviously a close friend of ours. He's out of Peacock Gym. He's 8-0 now. I'm not going to say a step up as such, no disrespect to Tom, but he's fought for a Southern Area title and won it. He's defended it. He's fought for an English eliminator before. So this is all good for Tom, for Paul, providing he comes through, because he'll start looking at titles and bigger titles if it comes to him. And clearly Tom will fancy that he comes and wins it as well. It's a nice one because Tom's with the Neilsons and Paul's with me, so it's definitely a tier 1-4 versus a Neilson on that fight. We'll back our guy, but a great fight, and hats off to both there. And then the other one, Jack Williams, who for me kind of stole the show at that first one in Ipswich. There's a lot of noise around him. He's a really good looking lad. He's cheeky. He sells a lot of tickets, but more importantly, everybody in the gyms are like, John, this kid at that weight's the best you'll find anywhere. And I've got to give credit to my guy, Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes is stepping up. I say stepping up. Jack Hughes is what he's in now, 10-3-3. So Jack's experienced. Jack's coming on some transatlantic shows with us. So it was like, well, here's a fight for you. Go and take it. I feel it's a 50-50 fight, but you get Jack Williams. I know he's at home, but he's 1-0 and he's taking on a seasoned ex-Southern Area champion in Jack Hughes. That will be a barnstormer. We then got Ryan Walsh on it as well. We're lucky to get Ryan. That's a big name for us. One of the biggest we've had. He's just chief support on the Denzel show at Wembley against Sam Noakes, and Sam Noakes couldn't get rid of him. Sam Noakes usually gets rid of everybody. I think how many's he had? 15, 16 fights, Sam, and there's only two that haven't lasted there's only two that have lasted the distance, and that shows the level that Ryan's at. He's still got a bit in the tank, so Ryan will be back out on this show. He's matched, and then hopefully Ryan will go on to some big stuff on some big shows after, and then we got a full supporting cast of Ipswich, Norwich, and even a couple of Londoners in there. I've added Franco Ignatius on there yesterday, which is good because we like being part of that journey. He looked good last time out in dropping Phil Williams. He didn't stop him, but nobody really drops, let alone stops Phil Williams. So hopefully Franco will kick on there, and a load of young, promising talent. Good show. Looking forward to it. February the 8th.
It's always good to get that sort of support base in one of these isolated towns. I mean, fighters based in the big cities like your Londons, your Birminghams, it's a lot more difficult, would you say? Because obviously there's that much more going on to get people out. But a small town like Ipswich doesn't really have that many sort of sporting heroes.
Yeah, I guess the word I'd use, and I used this quite a bit in boxing and definitely football, it was quite tribal. When at York Hall, it's the mecca of boxing, but it's London. There's shows every weekend. Sometimes there's two, one on a Friday, one on a Saturday. In terms of the novelty of there being a boxing show at York Hall in London, it's the same thing. It's on all the time. But when we got to Ipswich, we get there, I got to the venue on the day before, did all what we need to do, money collections, whatever. Then the next day we sort of like set up, everything's good. I go for a break with like my kids who work on the door for me, who do the tickets. Went and got them something to eat. Come back, got back there for about 4. I was saying the doors would open. Was it about 4:15? I said the doors would open about 4:45. At 4:15, there was a queue, and I'm not exaggerating, Mashid. 150 people deep to get in, and I was like, Jesus! The first fight's not for 45 minutes. Normally at your call, if I open the doors at 5:45 and do the first fight at 5:30, you don't see many people until 6:37 and even later. Yet they saw it as an event. I think they thought, we're paying good money here for tickets to go and watch whoever it may be. They all got there early, and the place was rammed from 5 o'clock. So I'm sure they made a lot of money on the bar. They owe me a beer for that. But it was a great night. And yeah, I think you're right. I don't think the town's actually that small. I've worked there before. It's a decent sized town. It's obviously not a city. I mean, when you've got a size of a town like that in the Premier League, that would tell you itself. I think it won the European Cup in the 70s as well. So it's a decent sized town, but I think you're right. It's a bit isolated. It's out on the East Coast. It's still a trek to get into the next biggest city, which is London. So putting things on there would be a massive thing for that town, and that's why we're going back. We were well appreciated. We also appreciated them. We've built great relationships. I was chatting to fans. I actually went to get a drink at the bar myself, and I stood in the queue because there was a queue, and they were like, "Why are you waiting?" I queued for about 15 minutes. It was that busy, but I was just chatting to people. Everybody there was lovely, and they enjoyed it. So hopefully we'll have the same turnout and the same result, but a better card, even a better card, which is right. And if this works, why can't we bring bigger titles back to Ipswich for some of these fighters as they go through their journey?
Absolutely, and I'm sure some of them might end up on the proposed Fabio Wardley fight at Portman Road in the summer. Who knows? Could be for the WBA regular heavyweight championship of the world. But yeah, that would be exciting times for Ipswich and for you guys. So going on to that, you got that big show is at the O2. Is it the 22nd of March? You against Mark Neilson. There's only one fighter listed on BoxRec, Kieran Keane, who I remember made his debut back in October. But I'm guessing, as you said, you've got a whole load of fights. I know you don't want to give away the matches, but what can you tell us about the card?
Yeah, I didn't realise that had that on Box Record, to be fair. So I'm not sure who's done that, but no, fair play. So the reason it's not on Box Rec yet is we haven't yet announced the actual card. I believe the card will probably go out Thursday, Friday. I'll go as far as saying by a country mile, it'll be the best show we've ever done. At the moment, we're talking 10, 11, 50-50 fights that are real 50-50s where they're prospect v prospect, not an ex-journeyman who's got a winning record. Sorry, an ex-prospect who's now a journeyman with a winning record. These are solid fights, and every one I'm like, fair play, fair play, fair play. And I think a lot of them, you've got to give them credit for taking the fights, because a lot of them don't like worrying about a loss or whatever it may be. But, some people, when you do lose, you get better and you learn from it. We've said this many a times. I can name loads of fighters. We all know it. But when you've had X amount of fights. For some people, like Jack Williams, it's one fight and he's happy for a step up. For others, it might be 4. For others, it might be 10. But at some stage, when you do start taking those 50-50 fights, or certainly prospect v prospect, what better platform to do it on at the O2 rather than York Hall? As much as we love York Hall, we respect it, it is home. But because we're so prolific and we're there all the time, and so is everybody else, it gives them almost like a bigger venue. It's a lot more expensive to do, so it's very, very scary when you look at the finances, but they deserve that platform. You know, if they're taking on the bigger fights, it's a nicer venue for it, but you will be very pleasantly surprised. I won't give any names away because it's give the respect to the fighters and let them have their moment when it's launched on Instagram, probably Thursday, Friday, but you will be very impressed. Very.
Absolutely. Will there be any titles involved?
Yep, at the moment I've got about 5. Or eliminators. There could even be more. It just depends on how things pan out. But yeah, lots of titles, lots of 50-50s. There's some 1 or 2 on here. I'm looking at it now and I'm like, that should be a title fight more than the others. But for whatever reason, it's not, because the belt's not available. The fight couldn't be made. They're with another promotional outfit, so one of the bigger boys, for example. But you would look at the fights and go, there's no belt on that, fair play. And that's where I have to give credit, because there's so many prospects out there now and there's only X amount of belts. Yeah. So your problem is quite often when you get some fighters and managers and trainers and you're talking about a step up, they're like, well, there should be a belt on the line for that, or it should be a title. Your problem there is that title shot might not come for a year or 2 because someone else has got it. They might go down a different route. They might fight a mandatory that you're not. They might get hold of a voluntary. The agreement might just not get done. There's so many different permutations and reasons why they do or don't get done. So sometimes I think they look at it and go, well, do you know what? I'm 6-0, he's 6-0. There's no title on the line. The winner is definitely going to be in a strong place no matter what, even though there's not a belt on the line. And even the loser, as I've said, you learn from them kind of fights. If you're 6-0 and you've had 6 journeymen or 6 fighters with losing records, then when you step up, there's nothing wrong with getting beat, because you probably learn more from that than what you have the previous 6 fights. So yeah, really good show.
I mean, it's going to be a really busy spring for you, because just a few weeks after that is that epic show at Stamford Bridge. I mean, you've whetted the appetite. A couple of the matchups have been released. Arnie Dawson, who we talked about, he's coming for his return on that show. Yeah, I think that the British fighters have all been announced on your Instagram. But yeah, how exciting is that? And can you tell us a bit about the venue? I presume it's not on the pitch at Stamford Bridge, is it?
Yeah, I'll happily tell you about it. So I'm really excited. Obviously, I'm a Chelsea fan myself, so that probably makes it a little bit more sweet. You know, if I'd have done it at Arsenal or Tottenham or West Ham, even though I don't really like them, I probably would be just as proud. But to do it at a football stadium, so it's the first time Chelsea have ever had a football stadium. We've got a great relationship with the directors there that was put in. Billy Coleman, a friend of ours, put us in touch with them, and we managed to get it over the line. Obviously, this is more of a fight zone show. It's powered by Dennis Hobson. It's a lot more expensive than normal, and the finances is 3-4 times more to put this show on for one reason or another than it would be for a York Hall show. Some of the things we got lined up before we talk about the card. We're going to be doing a fly on the wall documentary where we've got all the fighters home and away that are in houses for the week. And we'll have people follow them around. That'll all be serialized along with the build up and the fight week, and then that will go to a box set. We kind of know where that will be shown. It might be that some other people want that, while some people might think, who would want to watch that on the level of fighters, because they're not like world champions. You've got to remember that Roy Jones is with us. He is the team captain of the Americans. Spencer Oliver is with us. He is the team captain of the Englands. Those two are household names from a boxing point of view anyway. And the environment, we tasted it in Texas. We did the Airbnb experience. It was totally different from hotels. It gave a better camaraderie. There was more bonding. You know, I had Harvey Horn in the same house as me, kicking off at me every morning about my snoring. So you know, just that kind of. And I was in the next room. He was like, "You woke up the whole flipping house." Just the banter that goes with it, and we can get a lot of stuff in the gyms beforehand. And you know what? Worst case scenario, it ends up on YouTube, and it's a good exposure for the fighters. We've got the relationship with Chelsea. Chelsea are enabling me to get the fighters on the pitch for some face-offs. So fight week, I believe Chelsea are playing Tottenham. on the midweek game by pure coincidence on the Wednesday. The Americans will be here then. So at half-time at the moment, the plan is to get the Americans there with the English, and they will face off in front of 40,000 fans to get some exposure. We've got an after-show party for the VIP tickets that are more expensive, but it's hosted, and Roy will be there in attendance. As well as a fantastic card that you've talked about. The card itself, there is one name that we haven't mentioned yet, and there's a reason why, because we don't want that name mentioned yet. But there will be 12 fights. All 12 are winning records. That was the criteria. Some of the names on there are great, and it's more the fights. Like we've we've announced 2 or 3 of them. There should be another one today. There was a delay yesterday for a reason, but daily we are announcing fights, and I've got it again in front of me now. When I look at it, you've got, again, I won't announce them all because they haven't been announced, but I've got a 7-0 via 7-0. I've got a 5-0 with 2 knockouts against a 5-0 with 2 knockouts. We've got Lucas Ballinall. That's been announced. He's the IBF European welterweight champion. I haven't got it in front of me. Lucas is about 17-2 and a top fighter. He's taken on a fella with 20 wins with 15 knockouts. Jack Hughes is fighting a 5-0 lad with 5 first-round knockouts. I nearly started saying another one then, which hasn't been announced. But when you see the other names, I'll let them that come out. I've mentioned Arnie Dawson, and there's some good opponents they're fighting. The whole experience, we've had some interest from people around the sport. Yeah, I understand. Is it Callum Scott? I'm not going to try and sing it. He sings Dancing on My Own. He'll be there. We're talking about maybe trying to do some music with the event as well. I know that some of the fighters on the card that will be announced, they've got celebrity friends such as Jamie Redknapp, Shamika Richards. Joe Cole's a big boxing fan, and he's a Chelsea player, ex-Chelsea player. And these people are aware of the event and quite excited that there's boxing going to Chelsea. What you might find is that obviously the majority of the boxing we do is in East London, which is Bethnal Green, which is the hotbed and home of boxing. You might find that there's a lot of boxing fans at Stamford Bridge that are Chelsea fans that don't really venture over to the east side. But with the right marketing strategy and the promotion, we might get some interest from Chelsea themselves, because I'm sure there'll be some fans that think, I quite like the look of that. But anybody who's buying a ticket for either of them shows, to be fair, Rashid, but that one while you're on there, Dennis is investing a lot of money in that to make sure that it works. It is UK v USA too, but you'll never get a ticket a better show of 50-50. So I appreciate there's levels. I wouldn't even be deluded for 1 second to think that, no offence to these lads, they're not as big as your world champions, your European champions, your British champions. But to have, if I was paying money to watch my friend or my family member or my work colleague, and I looked at that card and thought, it's like a mirror every fight. Got to give credit to the matchmaker, Dan Francis, on that one. He'll like the shout out, but I gave him all the home fighters. Dan's then dealt with an American promoter, a matchmaker who's based in Vegas. He got the card match quite quickly, and equally, there were some that were thrown at us and we were like, no, it's not good enough. We were given ones that looked too easy, and that's not the point of this show. It's the lads over here that are stepping up. They've still got to sell their tickets, but they're going to have a unique exposure, and everything about the show, if we pull it off, should be amazing. So we're really excited about that. I don't know what I'm more excited about, the O2 one or the Chelsea. I feel like I've done the O2 one already, but it's bigger and better. Certainly at the moment, things do happen than the last one. But then you've got the Chelsea one, which feels bigger because it's Chelsea and because it's UK USA. But both cards are very similar in terms of what you're getting for your money.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a couple of weeks of spring for you. So much so, you got Jack Hughes out of retirement just for this, right?
Well, to be fair to Jack came out of retirement because Jack wants to have some fun. He's a good boxer, Jack. He's with us, and he's a good lad. He likes a bit of trash talk. He's good for the cameras, but he's good. Maybe we know the level that he might be at, but he doesn't want any silly fights. Like, he wants tough fights. So he ideally wants to come back and fight in America. We've got 2, possibly even 3 shows planned abroad in America this year. We haven't talked that. I don't want to confirm any because they're not all of them are confirmed, but 2 or 3 American, maybe another one in the Cayman. Thailand we're talking to at the moment. There's another venue out in the Middle East, and these look like they might come off. They're all pretty much through Dennis Hobson. But I work with Dennis, yeah? So TM14 and Fight Zone and Fight Academy, just like the NEILSONs are with them as well. I've said this on other interviews and maybe even on yours, but it's quite a unique setup we have. You're more powerful, in my opinion, with more people.
Yeah.
You know, Mark Nelson's a successful promoter in his own right. Dennis, Jesus, been around the block, managed people like David Hay, Ricky Hatton, put shows on in Vegas. We're prolific on our shows. We like to think that we do a good job, but put them all together, the ego sometimes get in the way, and we have a little bit of debate here and there, as I've mentioned before. But the bottom line is, if you get to where you need to get and put on great shows, but Jack wants to fight on them kind of shows. And it was like, well, if you're coming back, you're not just coming back for one fight and paying for your medical. He's like, no, I offered him the Jack Williams fight, which a lot of people are saying Jack Hughes is the underdog, even though Jack Williams is only 1-0. And I've got to reiterate, the noise around Jack Williams is very big. And I'd expect that lad to go very far. So he's taken that fight. He is then on the Chelsea show, win or lose, because there's no reason why he wouldn't. Obviously, he'll have ambition to go and beat Jack Williams, and I'm sure it's a 50-50 fight. He may well do that. And then he wants to come abroad as well. So it's good to have Jack back, certainly because he's with us. But yeah, all the other fighters, you know how we operate. We tend not to want to manage fighters because we just like working with everybody. So all the fighters at the O2, all the fighters at Chelsea, I like to think they're our fighters as well. We don't manage them, but we look after them. We give them opportunities. We give them exposure. You know, both of those shows as well, in terms of money, because they haven't got to pay opponents. And on the Chelsea, it's financed a slightly different way with a bit of a purse, again, from Dennis. Financially, they're earning more money on these shows than what they would on a York Hall show, and they're stepping up for it. So, yeah, you know, people look after us, we look after them and give them opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah. But by the way, at Stamford Bridge, where is the actual event going to be? Is it going to be in their conference hall?
Yeah, my apologies. I was rambling as usual. You did ask that question. It's not on the pitch, clearly, because we're not at a level one day, hopefully, where we can do 40, 45,000 or more. So it's on a concourse, holds about 2,500, depends how many tables we have. We will have some super VIP tickets that are £250 a head. What you get for them is amazing. You're getting a free course meal from a Michelin-starred chef who's a director at Chelsea. You've got alcohol on the table. You've got the best seat in the house, access to that after-show party, as I mentioned. So the more tables we sell, the less space it has for the standard, but there's plenty of tickets there for everybody. It's on a concourse. It's all going to be done up all glitzy. It isn't cheap to do it at Chelsea, as I'm sure you can imagine. They're a good brand. I'm biased, but they are a massive brand. Even the Americans, you know, it hasn't been hard to match it, because when I said we were going to Texas, I had loads going, can I come, can I come, can I come? When they saw that it was evenly matched and we didn't go over there and get a hide-in, they realised it worked. And the Americans now, for a lot of these American lads, they might never get the opportunity to come to London, let alone to say they fought at Stamford Bridge, because it's a bit like Chelsea are a brand. It's just like Arsenal, just like Tottenham, just like Man United, whoever you want to pick from a football point. But if I was told that I was going over and the show was at the Lakers arena or the Boston Celtics arena, that is iconic. And, you know, even over here, most of the kids on the show, if not all of them, aren't Chelsea fans, but all of them want to fight there, because it's still a big venue and a big tick box for them. And as I said, the rest of the stuff that we're providing for them gives them a lot of exposure.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we win.
And as you mentioned there, you have got potentially several more exotic locations. Is it the United States, the Caribbean, the Gulf, and Thailand all are being talked about?
Yeah, spot on. They are being talked about, and you know, we're not confirming anything on here, but the fact I'm talking about it is because they are being talked about in a very strong way. I've got a meeting on a phone call in an hour or so to confirm, which is looking bang on for Texas for July the 4th, Independence Weekend. It'll probably be in an arena that holds about 5,000 people. It's being funded by some people over there that certainly know what they're doing and have that financial backing, and they're looking to do a concert at the same time. I've got a meeting tomorrow about something in the Middle East, which I've only just got involved with, and it feels like that's quite the way there. And, you know, all these things come with Mark and Dennis, and it's, as I said, it's a good trio for us to work together. But doing the stuff abroad, Rashid, it whets your appetite a bit. When you're doing shows every month, it does become similar for us. Yeah. And even some of the fighters. So a lot of these fighters, you know, you've seen the Chelsea show, you'll see the O2 show. There are who's who have fought for us before, and in the main, not in all of them, but in the main. And that's because we try to give them opportunities. And when I'm speaking to a lot of these fighters, they're now like, right, so I can go on your call in April. Can I get on that one in Texas in July? And I've heard something about another one or two places in America. There's no point mentioning them yet, but other cities. even more glamorous cities than the one we've been to. But trust me, if you were out there in Texas, where we were in South Padre, which is where we're looking to do this one, Independence Weekend, it'll be like spring break in like Miami or something. It will be a massive event. So yeah, it excites us. It gives us stuff to look forward to, and it's exciting for us who work hard to go and have
Yeah.
those opportunities as well. Because when we came back from Texas, a lot of the fighters were telling me it was like the best week they'd ever had of their life, and I was one of them, to be fair. And I was a bit like, really? But actually, if you were there, that whole experience in the house, sat at a KFC bucket with Roy Jones, Spencer Oliver walking around in his boxer shorts at 6 in the morning making a load of noise. That probably weren't the best bit, but you know, they're just experiences that you're having. You're making friends, you're building connections, and you're having fun. That's the most important bit.
Yes, indeed. Wow, what a year to look ahead to. Yeah, I mean, but as you said though, you'll also still be doing the York Hall shows, keeping those
Mhm.
prospects going, and few title fights in there along the way.
Yeah, York Hall, that's our home. So let's be clear, that is home. It's just nice to do different stuff. Certainly, if they're a little bit more glamorous and a bit bigger and a bit different, because fighters want that as well as everybody. We've got a show. I think it's been announced tomorrow. That's the 14th of March at York Hall, and it's kind of getting lost a little bit with the work because straight after it we've got the O2, and then straight after it we've got Chelsea. And before that, we've obviously got the Ipswich one, which is gathering some momentum. But once that gets announced tomorrow, there's a good top of the bill 50-50 on there. There's a cracking fight. And then a who's who of prospects again on the undercard, you know, names that you'll be familiar with. And that all of those will be working towards getting those, you know, the 3-0s, the 8-0s, whatever it is they need to then go, right, can I go on the O2? Can I have a 50-50 title fight at your call? Can I come abroad and fight an American? It might even be that it's not America where we do like the transit. Well, I say transatlantic. Clearly, that is America, but we might go to Europe and do that against a European country. We might do that in Thailand. We might look at stuff like a prize fight, a quarterfinal, semi-final on the night in one of these countries, and take a couple of our own out there at the right weight, and maybe one or two others on the undercard. There's so many options, and as I say, you're more powerful when you're working with other people, and it's great. The learning bit, you know, from Mark's been doing it a long time, Dennis has been doing it years. Every day for me, I've been on the scene about 3 years now doing this, so you can't buy experience. It's a bit like when a fighter tells me they were sparring today or yesterday, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. When I'm knocking around with people who have been there and done it, got the t-shirt, it's good learning for me.
Absolutely. All right, John, you have absolutely whetted my appetite for the boxing going ahead in 2025. Yeah, we've seen obviously at the top level people like Turkey Street putting on those really big shows and cards, but always urge fans to never forget the real lifeblood of the sport is what people like yourself and the grassroots level guys are doing. Because you'll be around long after billionaires get bored of their new playthings. So everyone keep posted. 2025 is going to be a great year. John, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time. I hope I didn't take up too much of your lunchtime, and we will see you shortly.
Cheers, Rashid.